Thank you very much for joining me today, Adam.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the invite.
No, not a
Appreciate
problem.
it.
So I've literally just finished reading your book, man. And it's very
Nice.
insightful and inspirational.
Yeah, great to hear.
When did you write that?
Yeah, so I suppose first, I'd say about 4.5 years ago, kind of had the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was dealing with a whole bunch of stuff at the time, and martial arts kind of really helped me. And yeah, I just had an idea for a book one day, and I had said it to, my dad and stuff at the time, said, this would make a great book, and, kind of just put it on the back burner. And then I suppose since the recent pandemic, people are at home, we finally got it, because I had piles of notes, I had a book ready to go. And then, since the pandemic hit, I actually had time to focus on it.
Yeah. Well, I really want to dive into the book, but before, I kind of want to go into like how you kind of structured the book and how you got your ideas onto paper, because a lot of people, they have a lot of ideas and a lot of thesis and opinions about things, but very rarely do they actually get it down on paper and actually get something produced and published. So for people like that, especially with people with like writer's block and that sort of thing, what would you suggest to them?
Yeah, so I suppose I had started off, and like many people, I suppose, you see an insightful quote on social media, you take a screenshot, and it sits in your photos for a long time, and I also had reams of journals as well, so I had like about five hardback copies, just filled with notes about various martial artists. And I suppose the process for me getting it down on paper was I had a whole series of bullet points. And then I said, okay, well, I'd say I'm going to end up at around 20 chapters. Let's write that out and see, So the start process for me was to identify the topics that I wanted to deal with. So the first chapter is about Helio Gracie, very, the man who put Brazilian in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, right? And really incredible story. 12 years he sat on the sidelines watching his brothers do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, with Count Coma, and he couldn't join in for 12 years. And really that's about personal responsibility, right? Nobody else is going to do it for you, whatever it is that you want to accomplish in life. But Helio managed to, accomplish what he wanted after 12 years of kind of searching. And I suppose that was one chapter. So that was one kind of, note. And then another one might have been fear, for example. Helen Morales, Olympic wrestling champion. She's one that ties in with fear, even though she felt a whole bunch of fear, final of Olympic Games, subsequent world championships. She managed to, her internal kind of fear, she managed to overcome it. And then, didn't stop her from achieving her goals or performing to her highest ability, I suppose. So I got all these kind of chapters in a kind of tangible order, separated them out, thought to myself, I'm probably going to end up with about 15, 20 chapters, put them up on the board, and then literally have a whole another group of cards of martial artists that, I find inspiring and motivational, and maybe other people will too. And then just started tying them together, So I had Helio Gracie, Andre Ward, world boxing champion, is also in that chapter as well, and he ties nicely in with it, and just start piecing them all together. And then I suppose the trouble is, then you write it.
Right.
You
Yes.
vomit all these words onto a page. I got an editor involved to cut my word count down. So the book is about 35,000 words. I got an editor to cut that down from, it was, at the start, it was about 65, 70,000.
Right.
So you need to cut it down.
So you did a lot of research behind this book, or did you have that knowledge before?
Yeah, so I suppose to take a step back, a little step, I suppose I on the cusp of my mid-20s, I found myself living in a converted cattle shed that my dad had built me out in the arse end of rural Ireland in the middle of nowhere. I was failing my master's degree at the time. I was overweight. I had literally no money. I was working an internship for peanuts. My girlfriend at the time broke up with me because of, a lack of money. I couldn't even afford like the midweek cinema passes for like €5. And, I had an ancient car that leaked petrol every time I filled it up. So you fill it up with £20 petrol, it had at least spilled 10 pound out on the floor, you know,
Yeah.
so things were rough. I got really depressed severely. I had practiced judo, so I was an international judo player for Ireland until I was about 21. You know, so I'd always kind of knew about martial arts, knew about martial artists, and martial arts was always part of my life. But I suppose when I kind of hit that rough patch, that personal abyss where I got really depressed, you know, I started looking towards martial arts and, you know, other martial artists that could be role models for me, you know, and that's at the time where I suppose, you know, from an Irish perspective, this is the rise of, you know, Conor McGregor, you know, but also then there's a whole heap of martial artists. So then as I started, you know, jiu-jitsu, I suppose, was a kind of therapy for me. And then as practicing jiu-jitsu, I started to then realize there's a whole bunch of inspirational martial artists, right, who are like supremely confident in everything they do. You know, they can launch side businesses. They walk around like they're cock at a walk. They're entirely, you know, confident. They're highly motivated individuals. And I started looking at them and I was like, well, why can't I be more like them? And I suppose those guys kind of inspired me. I started to research more, and that's really what the book encompasses, I suppose, you know.
But what I really liked about the book, especially, was the fact that you kind of you related the experiences and the challenges that other people have overcome, especially people in martial arts on top end of the field. And you kind of related it to your experience and said, well, this is how I've overcome this aspect of my life, and this is how I've overcome this part. And something that I really did, that really resonated with me, because I've kind of looked into self-help books as well, like everyone has, right? Like, especially the time that we're living in, man. It's kind of like everything's happening at once. Kind of no one really understands what they're actually working towards, and it just feels like a bit, you know, you're just getting up to just pay your rent and your bills and that sort of thing. So I think a lot of people do turn to self-help books, and it may last like for an hour and a half, where you feel like, yeah, I'm in control of my life. I can do this, I can do that. And then next thing you know, something bad happens, and then you're right down to exactly where you were before, right? So you kind of said that, yeah, absolutely have that kind of that basis self-help books do give you, but martial arts kind of keep you there at a constant rate, at a practical kind of standpoint.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose that ties in with the fact that I suppose modern day, everybody thinks of martial artists and they think of two things. They either think of a, you know, ancient Asian dude with a wispy beard, weird robe, and he can smash stuff by blowing on it, okay? And, you know, these kung fu movies. Or they think about the average MMA fighter, you know, who's probably not too high up on the IQ scale of things. They're dragging their knuckles down on the floor, these kind of, you know, gorilla-like people, okay? And, you know, our concept of what martial arts actually is kind of one of those two things. You know, you got the kung fu movies and you have modern MMA. But actually, if we take a step back, you know, all the way back to when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was invented, judo, taekwondo, even wrestling as well, martial arts not only offers like a physical framework for, you know, conflict resolution, i.e. you swing a punch at me, I duck, takedown, choke, but it also offers, you know, a resolution, I suppose, a framework, you know, for mental and emotional conflict. And we take it back to even the ancient samurai, right? They were encouraged to, you know, focus as much on their mental preparation as their physical, you know, preparations, whatever it is, keep fit, you know, in order to defend themselves and the people around them. And I think martial arts, you know, it's all well and good. And look, I mean, I'm not going to say the law of attraction, whatever, you know, if that's your thing, all the more power to you, you know. But I suppose what this book doesn't, you know, it's not prescriptive in the sense that I'm not telling anybody to do anything. Like, I'm not great, you know, I'm just a student that's one desk across from everybody else, you know, and I'm trying to get on with my life as well. And these are things that, you know, the whole reason why I did all this typing and did all this editing was because this is the book that I wish existed when I was suffering my own personal abyss, you know. And I suppose the one I suppose the beautiful thing about martial arts, really, when we compare it to the likes of self-help books, like you were talking about, is that it actually offers us a whole rake more, than just the framework for physical conflict. It actually offers us, we can use it, to control our emotions more, mindset, everything, by learning from great martial artists before us.
Yeah. And that's it, man. And that's something that people don't actually get exposed to. And that's why I kind of wanted to ask you, because I don't know about you, but in Lincoln, where I'm from, not really, it's not really that well heard of, jiu-jitsu especially. Like, I don't really know many people that do martial arts in my friendship group, especially. So is it the same? I'm guessing it's a bit different because of the MMA and UFC, Conor McGregor and stuff, isn't it? But did you basically fall into a MMA class, or how did you actually get there? When you were right down there in levels of depression, how did you actually get to a martial arts class? What drove motivation to go to one?
Yeah, so I suppose I had always been around martial arts. So my two older brothers and my dad are black belts in judo and Japanese jiu-jitsu, So I'd always kind of grown up around it. Like I said as well, I was an international competitor for Ireland in judo up until I was about 21. But then kind of stopped, funding dried up for me. I had like a little mid-youth crisis where I was like, what am I doing here? Martial arts, I don't really know. I've only been exposed to really judo. My older brother had done a bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with John Kavanagh, who's the coach at SBG Ireland, the coach of Conor McGregor. And, I had gone to a class or two with my brother Luke to John's classes way back in the day when I was about 17. And I kind of said, oh, yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's cool, and then just kind of parked it. And I suppose just as I was finishing, my master's degree, I was in my mid-20s. And, that's when the shit really hit the fan for me. And I was like, what is life? What am I doing here? And I had always kept in the back of my mind that, since I was 17, I was like, John Kavanagh's a pretty cool dude. I'd like to train with him or whatever. And I really just kind of, I reached out to him on Facebook and I said, hey, any chance I could stop by for a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, MMA class, whatever. And that's really where I came in then. So he said, sure, no problem. Hop along.
That's awesome.
And so I did MMA, boxing, kickboxing, I trained with the semi-pro team there as well, the up-and-coming amateurs for a bit. But really, I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was my kind of one constant. And I kind of find my niche, where I could twist people into pretzels. But then I found Jiu-Jitsu was great because I could apply the same principles, right? Like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is all about efficiency, right? Maximum efficiency, minimum effort. And I can apply this to life too.
Right.
And I suppose, that was about 4 or 5 years ago when the idea, Jesus, wouldn't this make a great book?
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. But so, because obviously you got your black belt in judo first, right?
Yeah.
Is it a lot? Because I've not really trained judo. I've just gone straight into jiu-jitsu. Have you? Does it benefit your jiu-jitsu game now having that kind of judo background where you kind of just hoying people over your shoulder?
Yeah, I'd say so. It definitely helps, all right. It doesn't help for a few things. Like a lot of judo people will give up their back, like no problem, And I suppose in judo, if it goes to the ground, you have about 5-6 seconds to do any action, and then the referee will stand it back up. So a lot of judo players will just go in straight to turtle, straight out on their back, on their front, and just wait for 5-6 seconds. So, and then the opposite is true that, I haven't met many Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people that don't want to take the fight to the ground, right?
Yeah, right.
But it depends. It depends. Like in Ireland, judo is very small, and because of it's such a small base, if you're black belt in judo, that's great, but there's only about 50 people or whatever it is doing it,
Right, yeah. Because honestly, I think that your story will resonate with a lot of people. I'm serious when I say that, man, because it's up and coming, and this I feel like it's a pandemic, like not just coronavirus, but like this anxiety, depression. I hear that word like literally daily, man, and I'm trying to think of ways that people can like manage it and stuff, but I haven't found it until I got into martial arts at the start of the year, and I kind of think that for me has just completely changed my perspective. That's exactly how I get out of bad states, because I think to myself, well, I can just get in the zone. And when you're doing jiu-jitsu, man, like you literally, nothing, your worries don't exist, right? Your prior worries, that you're literally there in that moment. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people need to actually get into their lives. Because as you said, like another thing that resonated with me, you said that MMA artists crack the code against life.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I suppose that's the reason I suppose I keep going back to jiu-jitsu, you know, because it's very hard for you to focus on external problems when there's a motherfucker on your back trying to strangle you or you know, crack your arm, right? Like those problems just don't exist. You don't think in the middle of a jiu-jitsu roll, what am I going to do with that big client meeting that I have tomorrow? Or, oh man, I have a deadline, you know, like it doesn't exist, right? Like some guy's got you in a side arm bar. It's like, this is my focus. And it's a great way to bring yourself to be present, you know? There's a chapter in the book all about, you know, just being present. Do not let external, you know, stresses in your life. And actually, I think the story in that chapter is about Helio Gracie, who used to just roll himself up in a carpet, right? And told us,
That's fascinating. When did you read that? Because that is really interesting. I didn't know that.
That's the thing. Hickson, I think he did an interview just about 2 years back, and he brought it up, and I was like, oh my God, this has to be written down in a book somewhere. It's got to be in it, you know? But amazing story.
Yeah. So for people that are listening, what actually was that? What did Hickson actually do there when he was going?
Yeah. So I suppose so when Hickson had started, you know, what they call Valley Tudale back in the day, you know, where he'd no holds barred fighting. He realized that he had a bit of a problem when he'd get against a heavier opponent, and he'd get a bit claustrophobic, you know, when he was on bottom. He was kind of struggling for position. And he said, well, actually, the one thing I need to do here is to become comfortable in the uncomfortable. So he just got a random carpet, got his brothers to roll him up in it, and he said, don't let me out for the next whatever it is, you know. So he started off small, apparently. He did like 10 minutes. He said, okay, I was a bit claustrophobic, got a bit panicked. I need to control my breathing. I just need to focus in this moment, on the present, and let's go. And he used to just roll himself up on the carpet until he was comfortable, you know. So if you can roll yourself up on a carpet, you're comfortable with that kind of claustrophobia that's inherent in being rolled up in a carpet. And jiu-jitsu is inherently kind of claustrophobic, or at least it can be. You know, if you have
100%
a black belt that, you know, knows how to apply their weight, that is 100%. Even knee on belly, twisted in, you need to learn how to control your breathing. You need to learn not to panic, you know. And martial art is great way. And Hickson is a prime example of not panicking, focus on the present.
Yeah. And you were saying those other examples where it's not just claustrophobia that can do that. Just kind of facing your fears up front. And even just being around, you said being around a tarantula can help expose someone. What's the actual thing called where you're actually exposed to something? Does it have like a word name for it, a term?
Yes, it does. What is it? It's essentially though, so the thing with the tarantula is that, you know, somebody who's petrified of tarantulas, you know, the first step to getting them to overcome their fear is to just be in a room with it, you know. So it might be the cage is way off in the corner, you're just here sitting in, you get comfortable with that, and then we progress, and then, you know, you open up the cage, you're kind of close to it, not touching it, you know, and then the final step is, you know, you put the tarantula on your skin, let it crawl around. But I suppose it's exposure therapy is the word I was looking for.
That's it. Yeah.
And just by exposing yourself to these things. So then if you actually take that back into martial arts, like joining a martial arts club, you know, that's a big step for somebody, you know, to actually put themselves out there. You know, you don't have the uniform yet for a jiu-jitsu class, so you show up in your t-shirt and your tracksuit bottoms, and you know, you might look a bit silly, whatever it is, and you go in and, you know, you don't really know what you're doing. You're trying to do like the happy feet, the penguin dance around somebody's guard as opposed to a guard pass. right? You got all these things, but actually, just by exposing yourself to jiu-jitsu, it's helped on, other things
Yeah.
in life, that you're a little bit more confident to speak up in the next staff meeting, that you're, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? That, you're a little bit happier in those moments as well, by yourself. You could be by yourself, and it just helps a whole range of stuff. You're not taking shit from your neighbor. You're not, you're not
That's
getting
it.
into silly arguments with your family. All these things, can be benefited just by martial arts. And it's
Yeah.
worth noting there that you don't even need to be a martial artist, right? Everybody on this planet is a fighter, right? Like Dana White, president of the UFC, says, fighting's in our DNA. We get it and we like it. It's a part of life, and it has been, since the start of humans on the planet. Conflict, physical conflict, whatever it is, but conflict as a whole is a part of daily life. And really,
100%.
if we are looking for a framework, it's all well and good to go out, wish upon a star, find out what animal you were in your previous life, whatever it is, right? Law of attraction. But also then to add on to that, martial arts is the most efficient way to resolve conflict, whether that's physical, whatever it is. It's the most efficient way to do something. In this case, it's self-defense, but it also benefits the rest of your life as well.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people in our generation, they've kind of been engineered with this framework of you need to be perfect to be anything, right? So that has caused massive amounts of trauma, in my opinion, from what I've seen, especially with people that have everything given to them, right, from the parents. And I've seen people struggle with that a lot, and I feel sorry. I do have a lot of compassion for that, because they have so much expectations from the teachers, from the parents, from everyone, dude. And before, I don't know, 100 years ago, man, it was you didn't have that expectations to be this successful perfection of a person. You just did what you needed to do. And for me, that martial art kind of allows you to be okay with losing. And it is okay. It's perfectly fine to be to lose, man. That's part of the reason why I started this YouTube channel, because I know the first few videos are going to be absolutely horrendous, and I'm okay with that, man, because you can only get better.
100%. That's awesome.
Just by doing and just repeating everything that you're doing, you're going to get more confident. You're going to get more. You're going to get into a better framework from where you look at life.
Enjoying what you're doing. That's the main thing.
Yeah. But throughout the whole of the book, it talks about how, people have had this brain for tens of thousands of years. So every thought that you've had, someone else has had it before. And you had a chapter about that. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was talking about the founder of karate,
Funakoshi, who once said, the ultimate aim of martial arts is not in perfection, but the betterment of the individual who takes it on, right? And I suppose not everybody in the world is going to want to be a 2-weight UFC world champion. Not everybody in the world is going to want to be an Olympic boxing medalist. But, to gain an advantage, I suppose, from martial arts, it's not about the end result. It's about, how these martial artists, I suppose the battleground on which this book is based is the fact that we're all human. We've all experienced the same emotions. And it's actually how people overcome these negative emotions. At one point, we've all felt hopeless, angry, confused, lost. And it's actually how we overcome those emotions is really the kind of crux of life, that you don't need to be result driven, that you're going to be world champion. You just need to look at somebody who's overcome these obstacles that everybody faced at one point or another.
Yeah, and start to enjoy the process, right? Because a lot of people are fixated on a result to make them happy, but actually, if your daily life makes you, get up in the morning and be excited about what you're doing, that's the goal, man. In my opinion, being happy about what you've got right now is the ultimate goal, for sure.
Yeah.
So
without a doubt. great example of that is Sanchez. Diego Sanchez hasn't been a title contender since 2011, right?
Yeah.
Since he fought BJ Penn, and he just loves fighting. I think I've calculated in the book that he spent about over 7 hours in an MMA cage fighting, right? He's not a title contender. He's not one of the highest paid athletes. He doesn't care where he sits on a card. He just fights because he loves it, right? Donald Cerrone, another good example, a teammate of Sanchez. These guys just fight because they love it and they found a passion. They stuck with it and they just run with it. And I think that's the main aim I found, throughout writing this book is it's not about the end result, it's about the process. And the more you love the process, I think, the happier people will be as well. Or at least that's what I found in my case.
Yeah, absolutely. And so after this book was released, what is your kind of goal now? Do you want to kind of impact more people with your writing?
So I already started a second book.
Nice.
So it's going to be about the foundations of kind of Jiu Jitsu, where it all came from. Bit of a crazy past where people used to raid other people's gyms and call them out. A lot of fights between judo people, Jiu Jitsu people, wrestlers, boxers, all sorts. I've started research for that book. But in terms of that, I release a blog every week, or at least I try to. That deals with similar topics like the ones in the book. But yeah, other than that, look, I mean, the reason why I wrote this book is because if it could help one person who was feeling as shit as I was a few years back, well, that's job done then,
100%.
But yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't know what's next, but I'm happy. Like you said, you're happy waking up.
Navigating. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm happy I'm happy learning what's next as well. It's good.
Yeah. Because I love the idea of writing a book, but like so many other people, just don't know how to structure it. So having that structure in place before is that probably the best way of doing it?
Yeah, like I think, like I just launched this by myself, and I know John had provided me with a forward very kindly, but that was reaching out to him, and because we have a good relationship. But anybody can write a book. The number one thing that I felt when I started this was everybody on the planet is going to think I'm a dickhead, and I'm going to get all sorts of mean comments on Instagram and Facebook, calling me a ginger dickhead. And it wasn't, I haven't had one negative whatever comment message at all. People have been very positive, and actually, people I don't even know have reached out to me and said, thank you for writing this book. It was great. You know what I mean? Very motivational for me. I'm halfway through. I'll let you know what I think at the end. I'm like, that's fantastic. It's a little very humbling, to get a stranger message you, out of the blue with something positive to say, hey, look, thanks for writing this book, But I suppose, sorry.
Because I think you put yourself in a vulnerable place. I don't think many people are prepared to do that. So I think that's why people admire it so much, actually, because you kind of just said it how it was. You're like, look, I'm not here to be like a motivational speaker or just like a motivational guru. I'm here just as a mate, just to try and pick you up again. Because a lot of people that kind of get stuck in the same mindset, they're like, their thoughts become things where they think, or no one wants to talk to no one this, no one that. But actually, you've wrote it purely to someone in that headspace to go, actually, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think if you come from a genuine place, if you're genuinely there to either help or provide value, then people will listen to you. I feel, I genuinely feel that. But in terms of that, like the book itself, I suffer from imposter syndrome from the very start as well. And I was like, who am I to write a book, And when you actually step back and think about it, nobody's thinking about, you know, who you are, right? Like majority of the time, they're focused on their own stuff, you know, and nobody. What's the worst that could happen? That the world breathes a sigh of relief, or you know, whatever. Just oh yeah, that guy wrote a book, cool, and then life moves on, you know. Which is, you know, both kind of disheartening, but equally motivating as well. You know, we're all in this together. Nobody really has a clue what they're doing. And once you can accept that, move forward, life becomes a lot easier to handle, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, listen, if anyone wants to read the book, where can they find it? Because obviously you can download it online, can't they?
Yeah, they kind of did. So this book right here, it's available paperback, Kindle as well, via Amazon. And you can find me on social media as well. It's a link at the top of my Instagram or Facebook. That's Adam X Corcoran, so Corcoram. And yeah, it's available on Amazon. Audiobook is coming soon as well. So that's narrated by Mark Raby, who's a Canadian voice actor.
Oh, serious? Why didn't you record it yourself?
I don't know. I tried. I had like a little microphone set up, and I just could not get it to work for the life of me. And also, then that's a good example of imposter syndrome, right? Because I was like, who's going to listen to this big old Irish accent, right? So better off, yeah. So that's due to be coming out, I think mid-May, which is pretty exciting too, and that'll be available on Audible. So Amazon, Audible, and it's expanded distribution as well. So if you know you're W.H. Smith, Eason's in Ireland, whatever it is, Hodges Figures, Waterstones, they all have it available on the catalog as well.
Awesome, and you can download it for free on Amazon if you've got
Kindle Unlimited. Yeah, you can indeed. So if you have a Kindle subscription, entirely free. So
awesome.
There you go.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Adam. It's been really interesting to hear your insight and everything like that.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll leave all the description in the bio so people can contact yourself as well.